si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera a tutti. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here at this meeting. We know that the Middle East is experiencing a dramatic moment with great difficulties in the last decades. The war that broke out in the Holy Land will surely change the political situation of the whole region, and not only. Very often we've heard speaking about the Gulf countries as players that are implied in what is happening and somehow in the war between Israel and the Palestinians. And very often they are referred to as the Sunni countries, and it's not really like that. So in this afternoon, this evening, we would like to deal with this complex matter with a very complicated situation, but from a different perspective, a different point of views compared to what we generally find in the newspapers, and focusing on these Muslim countries from a different point of view. That is the point of view of the Christians that live in the Gulf areas and that are part of the 15 million immigrants living in the Gulf area. And I would like to mention what Pope Francis said when he was in Bahrain. He described the Christian presence, which is quite significant in numbers. And he said 2 years ago, in this land there is much desert, but there are also springs of fresh water flowing silently underground, irrigating it. It is a beautiful image of what you are, and above all, of what faith works and does in life. On the surface, our fragility emerges, patched by so many frailties, challenges it has to face, personal and social ills. But in the background, right inside, in the depths of the heart, the sweet water of the Spirit flows calmly and silently, irrigating our deserts and restoring vigor at what risks drying up and always renews life. So, to recount what this experience means, which is not easy from any point of view, we have two important witnesses, the two pastors of this very special community, the Vicariate of Arabia, which comprises 7 states. And these two people are Monsignor Aldo Berardi, a round of applause for him, and Monsignor Paolo Martinelli, respectively Vicar Apostolic of North Arabia and Vicar Apostolic of South Arabia. Before giving the floor to them, I'd like to use some map to give you some figures to better understand the presence of Christians in proportion with the inhabitants. So the Vicar of North Arabia comprises 4 states, Kuwait, which is an emirate where there is the Sharia as the main source of legislation. Out of 4 million inhabitants, 2 million are foreigners, 350,000 are Catholics. And then there is Bahrain, where Pope Francis was. There are 1.3 million inhabitants, more than half are of foreign origins, and 9% are Catholic. Islam is the religion, they are Sunni. Even if in Bahrain 70% of Muslims are Shiites, and the Shiite bloc is the one guided by Iran, about which we've heard so often. And then there is the Qatar, again an emirate with the Islam as a state religion, 2.6 million inhabitants, 80% foreigners, and 10% of them are Catholic. Last but not least, the largest Sunni state, Saudi Arabia, with 28 million inhabitants. 4% are Christians, most of them Catholic. And there is a powerful dynasty which is reigning. And the Sharia, the Islamic law, is the one that regulates the everyday life. Here you can also see the number of Catholic churches, and in Saudi Arabia there are none. Then the Vicariate of South Arabia within 3 states, United Arab Emirates, where there are 9.5 million inhabitants, out of which 88% are foreigners and 9% Christians. And the Islamic rule is a bit more liberal compared to the other states. Then the Oman, an Islamic sultanate with 4.5 million inhabitants, 2% are Catholic. And then the Yemen, with Houthi attacking the Red Sea. The country is really devastated by a long civil war with 30 million inhabitants, and there are around 200 or 300 Catholics. So this is the general framework, just to give you an idea of the map of the situation of these countries that Monsignor Berardi and Monsignor Martinelli are serving. So let's start with Mr. Berardi from the north, 61 years old. He is French of origin. For over 30 years, he has been a missionary in the Arab countries and was appointed vicar of the North Arabia. So the situation in these countries where there is a Muslim majority is something that must be not easy. But what do you do to remain a spring of fresh water, as Pope Francis said? Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. This evening I would like to talk about hope, about faith, about the joy of being Christians, especially in a difficult world for us, the Islamic world. But we live in exceptional circumstances in Islamic countries with the Islamic law, where there are millions of people who arrived there to work in the oil and gas sector or services. And we found ourselves in a special circumstance. Muslims have welcomed Christians, even if they hadn't met any of them for centuries, maybe only at the time of Crusades. But then when oil was found, these countries developed and the Christians arrived. So the meeting point of two or more civilizations and religions, well, it's actually two religions, but many civilizations, because, you know, we arrived from many different countries and we brought our traditions, our rights, our languages. And so the Catholic side of church was brought to this land. It's interesting to see that the Muslims have rediscovered the Christian religion, even with some conflicts, some persecutions. But little by little, coexistence has become peacefully, more or less peacefully, depending on the countries. And there's a real meeting, a meeting between the Catholic Church in its diversity of languages, of rights, because in all these countries, many Catholics arrived with their rights, so the Eastern rites and the Latin rites or rituals, and the different languages, different traditions, local customs. And our challenge is to have a united church, even with different languages, different traditions, and different rituals. The first message is actually the joy of being Christians, of living as member of a universal Catholic Church in the diversity that we know. Diversity that we maybe know only from an intellectual point of view, from books, but even in Europe now, following the migration flows, we have encountered many different Catholics of different origins. And there is one Latin bishop in charge of all these communities. Think of the Eastern rituals or the Indian rituals. So our joy to be Catholic sometimes has to deal with diversity, with differences. And so it's our duty to guarantee this unity. And being Catholics with the universal church that gives us more freedom is particularly important for us. And we missionaries are always bound to this international, universal church. We are part of a church that goes beyond the borders of nations, and we are united. This being said, due to the diversity among people, Christians, Catholics, and also due to some limitations and restrictions, there are churches that are always full of people, but it's difficult to get organized in order to receive all the people and the believers that come to us from different countries, the clergy as well. All those who come to us to help and celebrate the different languages of the different Catholics. So there is no problem of having empty churches in these countries because the churches are even too full. But some countries give us permission, some others don't allow us that. And so it's difficult to find enough room for everyone. So you saw in Saudi Arabia there are 1 million Catholics and there is no church. In Bahrain there is one cathedral, and then my vicariate, or in Qatar there is just one Latin church and then two small churches of other rituals of the Christians of Kerala. And then there is a co-cathedral with a small church. And the point is, how can we accept, welcome all these people? There are some basements where people gather, and there are parishes without churches. Even if we have asked several times for churches, but we have been denied the permission. So we have problems with space and also with the coexistence of all these rituals and the unity represented by the bishop, who plays a crucial role. So according to the decision of the Holy See, the bishop is in charge of all rituals in all languages until a few years ago. Even if now there are some jurisdictions that are being attributed to the Eastern Oriental churches. However, with the growth of the Latin ritual, there are some countries in Africa, in Europe, in South America with people who arrive who are Christians in Eastern countries and want to live their faith in those countries. So there is this first challenge and the second challenge, which is the meeting with the Islam. This requires dialogue. It requires a negotiation of our place in the society. All the Christians who go there have a job, and so they contribute to the economic and social development of the country. But very often they see limitations of their rights because they never receive a citizenship, and life conditions are not easy. And so the meeting with Islam requires us to have a sort of official dialogue, an official exchange, but in particular, coexistence, as they used to say in Bahrain, a coexistence of the different religions, because there are the Catholics, but there are also the Buddhists and the Hindus, and many other groups. And we try to live it together. We make efforts to live together. And then there are also countries where there is a more or less a formal exchange, a more or less formal conversation with Islam. But the meeting is important. The meeting of life, the daily meeting with need to be witnesses of Christ without preaching, without evangelizing openly. Evangelization means, first of all, to experience the gospel in our everyday activity, because we cannot express freely things involved in our faith. And this is even more difficult, because speaking is easy, but experiencing it every day show that we are Christians, and Catholics in particular, is a real challenge for us. Are we a church made up of migrants, of people who haven't settled? Maybe, but it is a long-lasting church. Maybe there are people who stay there for 10, 20 years and then they go back to their countries or to other countries, but the church remains. So there is this challenge of the duration, the perpetuity of the church. So there are challenges, as in every other thing, but there is also this great joy of experiencing and living our faith, of being together. For example, when we celebrate the Holy Week, there are really lots of people who celebrate for 24 hours uninterruptedly, because there is this joy. And then there is the catechism with thousands of children. We do not even have enough space for them. So again, the situation is tough, it's difficult, but there is always this joy to be together in the diversity of the church. And the challenge is to be able to live and express our joy to be Christians. And so this is our experience in the North. Thank you.
Grazie, Monsignor Berardi, per la...
Thank you. Thank you so much for the joy you transmitted. And now the Apostolic Vicar of South. He was bishop in Milan for a few years, and since 2022, he's been the vicar of Southern Arabia. So I'd like to leave the floor to you. Please tell us what it means to guide these communities. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. I'm so happy to be here with you and be able to share my experience that is quite short. I've been there for just a couple of years. So I have some opinions. I must say that in these countries covered by the Apostolic Vicariate, the situation is quite different. Well, it's like a polyphony. And this is a word that Pope Francis pronounced when he came to United Arab Emirates in February 2019 to sign the famous document on human fraternity. And when he celebrated Mass at the Zayed Stadium, he said, well, people say that between Britain and oral gospel, the difference is like between music that is written or played. You are like a choir that includes a variety of nations, languages, rituals, a diversity that the Holy Spirit loves and wants to convert it into a symphony. this joyful polyphony of faith is a witness that you're giving to everybody and unites and glorifies the church. So I have found a church that is very lively, rich in differences and diversity. It is modulated differently according to the states. The United Arab Emirates are very dynamic, open-minded, loving the coexistence of people, religions. It is a very religious country, state, but it's also very modern. And so I was very impressed by the impact of this modernity that cares a lot about religion. Oman, instead, is a much more traditional country where there's very serene, very calm life. The people are very mild. And the church is organized in a very different way between these two countries, while Yemen is different after 10 years of civil war. And as we heard Catholics are all migrants. Nuns and priests, all included, are all migrants. We're there. Some of us remain only for a few years, some others for up to 30 years. With regard to the faithful people, they do all kinds of jobs, from the humble ones up to other jobs. Most of them come from the Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, but also some Arab countries. Some faithful people come from Africa, Nigeria, Ghana. There are some Catholic people coming from Europe, especially Latin America too. And, it is a church made up of peoples. The main structure of the church is comprised by parishes. We have 9 in the Emirates, 4 in Oman. While in Yemen, we had 4 parishes. At the moment, they are not active. They are not accessible due to the damages by the civil war. Our main pastoral challenge is unity within differences. Following my predecessors, the parishes are structured in a very interesting way through linguistic or based on linguistic communities. Even if maybe this is not the right word, well, actually they are communities joining people from the same nation with the same language, or sometimes by geographic area. And their task is to express the proximity of the church to the situation of each one. This is very important, especially for the new ones. They need to be welcomed, supported, listened to. And also, it is very important to go and intercept those Catholic people that have arrived in the countries but don't attend the church. It's very important not to leave anyone aside or isolated, and find a way to keep these people company, to offer them the opportunity to be together and share the same difficulties, and also the joy of working together. And besides these communities, linguistic communities, as they are called, they also have the task to introduce people to the parish, to the church. It's not enough to be part of your own linguistic group, but actually through the linguistic group, you have to be able to feel that you're part of the Church of Christ, and you are a member of the people of Christ. So again, the importance of discovering baptism, what unites us through baptism. We're different in terms of languages, rituals, and cultural characteristics, but we all received the same baptism. Once you are aware of it, then the differences become a source of richness. Instead, if you're not aware of it, then differences may become barriers. This is why the bishop's task is to call everybody to belonging to Christ through baptism that made us part of his body. And of course, sometimes the risk is that we may have some tension. People might want to remain within their own group. But then, once you acknowledge that you belong to the same group, actually, welcoming the Christian faith, allows us to understand our characteristics. Recognizing differences is always a richness for everybody. And then what is also very interesting is our clergy. We are 67 priests, and many are Capuchins, and we have an Indian friar, one from the Philippines, Italy, and Africa. So this is very interesting because people see that the clergy is different, but actually it's just one clergy. So they see priests, they are different, they come from different nations, but actually they compose just one clergy. And therefore, the faithful ones recognize us and themselves as part of the same people, of the same population. And then also what impressed me is the presence of many movements, associations, and also great availability to assume services and ministries within parishes. And what is very meaningful is that people discover the meaning of baptism in their everyday life, starting from the family up to their job. And within an Islamic context that is also multi-religious, it's very important to have different opportunities and paths where you can deepen up the reasons for your Christian faith. So there are movements, communities that have the ability to aggregate people that belong to different cultures. And again, the interculture of these very charismatic experiences. And this helps everybody to experience diversity within unity. Something that is very characteristic and peculiar of our vicariate are the schools. We have 9 Catholic schools in the Arab Emirates. 6 of them are directly managed by the Apostolic Vicariate. We have more than 30,000 students involved, not just Catholic, but also Muslim and from other religions. They're very appreciated for the educational experience that is proposed by these schools. They're very inclusive. The schools are very inclusive. They are like a workshop of intercultural dialogue and interreligious dialogue. As Pope Francis says, if we want to change the world, we have to start from education, from the schools, from the education of the younger generations. And I believe the schools offer this opportunity. So again, the importance of religious education, the relationship with God that shapes our relationship with humanity in order to have more human relationships and a more human society. The schools are run by nuns, and they are 50 nuns. We have fewer nuns than priests. Usually it's the opposite, but here, well, hopefully maybe in the next few years we will have more nuns arriving. And I'd also like to communicate the amazement of seeing the passion of our faithful people when they participate actively in the life of church. And we have a very high participation, and the churches are not enough. There's not enough room for all the faithful people. The official language is English, but very often we have also the opportunity to have, some rituals or some celebrated in different languages. And sometimes it's the faithful people asking for the bishop to increase the number of mass or service, increasing the number of priests. When I tell priests in Italy, they're so surprised. It's the faithful people saying, please, bring here more priests. Let's have more services. And this is quite amazing. And then another reason for joy is to see that the faithful ones put themselves at the service of church. For example, the choirs. There's so many choirs organized by faithful people, linguistic but also intercultural choirs that really give life to our liturgy. And it's incredible. It's amazing to see such big participation. And also they participate in organizing the life of the church. There are so many faithful people that accompany people inside church. They have to keep order during the service in order to have one group inside and then the next group. So there's passion by people, by faithful people, so that everybody can take part, can participate in the best possible way. And also catechism. The communication of faith to the new generations. In our vicariate, we have more than 34,000 children who are getting ready for the first communion and for confirmation. So seeing the enthusiasm of their parents who are available. Young people also want to help them, so they have to get ready, of course, in order to do that. And they have a job, of course, but they also find time to be trained, to train themselves in order to communicate and pass on faith to new generations. This is very interesting, because very often, as we say, you don't have just to communicate a list of things to do. You have to communicate a life. You have to show them how faith gives us the opportunity to have a new way to look at the world, to feel life. And so faith can really give life to relationships in a different way. All right, so this is also true in Oman. And I'd like to share with you something that happened a few weeks ago when we made the decision to open a new center for Christian preparation or education in Muscat. And there are faithful people, so many faithful ones, and we don't have enough space for people. So we decided to open up a new house for Christian education. And so it took some time to have it approved. And then once we put the first brick on the ground, it was the first stone on the ground. Also, the director of the Muslim religious affairs wanted to participate. He wanted to put the first stone on the ground together with me. This is very interesting because you see that Christians are living their faith very well. They are happy in practicing their faith. And the Muslims also agree with that. If they do that, they can participate very fruitfully in society. With regard to Yemen, Aden, the capital city of the country, it was the seat originally of the Apostolic Vicariate in 1889. The Christians at the time of the British presence were many. 4 churches were built. There was also a big school run by the Vicariate, but then the regime changed. The situation has worsened totally, and the school was then seized. And with the start of the civil war 10 years ago, the situation worsened a lot, and the country was split in two. Most of Christians left Yemen. There are 2 communities of missionaries of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. In 1998, 3 nuns were killed by a fanatic, and at the beginning of the civil war, 4th of March 2016, 4 nuns were killed, were murdered, together with some Muslim workers that were helping the nuns in their work. But despite all of it, they wanted to be present, to keep present. Most of the Christians fled the country, but they wanted to stay, and they are a sign of hope for everybody.
Grazie, Monsignor Martinelli.
Thank you, Monsignor Martinelli. Thank you both. You have explained very well what it means, unity in diversity. There's actually an event, maybe a few people know about it, something that started only a few months ago in your vicariates. It's like a preview of the Jubilee, because Pope Francis has given you this extra year Jubilee to remind the martyr, Santa Areta. And your Jubilee started a few days ago, but it was a coincidence. It was exactly when the war started in the Holy Land. So what does this extra Jubilee mean to you? For the entire region, actually, there is suffering a lot now.
Martiri.
Santa Areta and companions in South Arabia. So a jubilee after 1,500 years from the martyrdom, killed in 2023. Well, there were Christian communities in the Arab Peninsula, and in particular the Najran community that Prophet Muhammad reached to look for protection. And there is this Najran treaty in which the Islam prophet gave them the permission to remain Christians. So this was known. And we also knew that there were monasteries in the area, some Christian communities of all these countries, in all these countries. And when we were looking for who were these martyrs, we realized that they were an important community of the Najran oasis. And so the person in charge of this Najran community was actually a secular representative, Areta, and he didn't want to deny the Christian faith when faced with the Yemen king. And it was a very important event. It is mentioned even in the Quran. And the tale of this martyrdom in different languages has been going on for centuries, and now we know that we are like the heirs of these communities, the descendants. There were monasteries, there were bishops at that time. And for today's Christian communities, this is a discovery. They thought that there were nothing before, whereas now we know that the missionaries were able to convert people and create these communities and churches there. So we asked the Holy Father to have this Jubilee after 1,500 years to celebrate the faithfulness of these martyrs, Santa Areta and companions. On the 24th of October, we will celebrate them. And so these Jubilee raised some enthusiasm among Christians and non-Christians. And the question was, why are you celebrating these pre-Islamic people? And some research was conducted, and now we can say that in many Gulf countries, they accepted to considerate Christian populations even before the foundation of Islam. Because very often, you know, Muslims think that everything begins with the Prophet, and before it was only darkness. But it's not true. There is a historical reality in the history of the country and of the Arabic language. In monotheism, and there's some current research which is very interesting on this, and they accept that these ruins that we find in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, or Bahrain, ruins of the first monasteries in those areas. Well, these ruins are actually a demonstration, proving that they have to accept what happened in the past. And so, first of all, we understood that we are descendants. There is a connection with these first communities. So we didn't arrive out of the blue in these countries, but there's this connection with the past, with the apostolic time. And it is something that gave our believers enthusiasm and joy. In the Middle East, there are tensions. There's unrest and a pilgrimage that are done there in the areas of Saint Areta and companions, and because they were killed for political reasons. And so we wanted to be descendants of this faithfulness of the martyrs to the Trinity and to the deity, the holiness of Christ in a world, in an area where it was not accepted. And this is at the basis of a strong idea of community, considering that we belong to the same faith. We represent, we are witnesses of this faith, of this religion. And so many services and opportunities of pilgrimage and prayer and reflection were promoted among all communities. The Jubilee helps us overcome the political tensions of the Gulf countries. You know, we always pray for peace. We don't want to talk about politics because we can't and we don't want to, but we are supporting people who suffer. And the people who suffered martyrdom at that time are like people who are suffering nowadays in countries at war. And this is a further encouragement to pray and to be faithful to God's gospel. Santa Areta, during his life, said, giving life for Christ is giving life for eternal life. So this is in line with the essence and the essential part of life. What makes you alive? What makes you live? It is clear that many people may say, you go to those countries for money or for have a, a living, earn a living. But what those populations made at the time make us go back to the essence, that is believing in Christ for eternal life. The Jubilee will end in October, and then we will open the Holy Lake, the Holy here, sorry. So we are always celebrating. We're always celebrating, even when we are on fast. Because we are so happy and joyful to celebrate Christ's resurrection, and we are connected to the martyrs, to those who suffer today, focusing on what is most important to us. There's the love of God that He gives us in communion with the Holy Spirit.
Grazie, Monsignor Berardi.
Thank you, Monsignor Berardi. You have perfectly described how martyrs from 1,005 years ago still testify and bring hope for the entire region. So now I'd like to keep on talking about hope with regard to the dialogue with Islam. And we listened to Cardinal Pizzabara, the Patriarch of Jerusalem. He said that due to the conflict in his areas, this dialogue is now interrupted between the different religious leaders, obviously the Jewish and also the Arab ones. You have your main seat is in Abu Dhabi, where shortly ago this Abraham Family House was inaugurated, and this is a very important milestone for the setting up of dialogue. Can you tell us what it is, and also what is the meaning of it? What does interinstitutional dialogue mean to you, and can it give hope to the entire Middle East? Of course, the Abrahamic Family House, this experience is very meaningful, and it is something very important. It welcomes the document signed by Pope Francis and the Imam Al-Azhar in 2019. And actually, without this document, it wouldn't be possible to understand what this Abrahamic Family House is. So, as we know, Pope Francis came in 2019. It was actually the first trip of the Pope to the Gulf, and then in 2023 he also went to Bahrain. But 2019 was really the first time, and this document was signed making reference to the meeting between Saint Francis of Assisi 800 years before with the Sultan Amil Kamil. On this document is unique, it is prophetic, it is inspirational for a new relation between religions, starting from the figure of Abraham as the father of faith. There's actually one part of this document that is very meaningful, and which says, in the name of God, Al-Azhar Sharif, with the Muslims of the East and of the West, together with the Catholic Church, together with the Catholics of the West and the East, declare they adopt the cultural dialogue as a way through common collaboration as a conduct, and common knowledge as a method and criterion. This is a statement that opens up to a new chapter in the history of relationship between religions. It is an invitation to sincere knowledge going beyond the prejudice for the task of promotion of human brotherhood, that is to say, more just society, fraternal, since the document in its preface says, faith leads faithful people to believe and to see in the other person a brother and a sister to support and love. This is the preface of the document. So religions have the task to remind everybody that without God, human beings go against themselves and make society inhumane. And as the document says, we have to educate ourselves to the role, fundamental role of the religious meaning that inhabits every man and woman. So the sense of God as the ultimate meaning of life. Every authentic religion has highly valuable meaning that is supporting coexistence. This is why every form of violence is condemned. God is always God of peace and reconciliation. So the inauguration of the Abrahamic Family House was on the 16th of February 2023. And it was a very meaningful moment for the implementation of the document. So here it is possible to experience what is written and declared on the document. The Abrahamic Family House stimulates us to redefine, to put ourselves at stake, to put the way in which we believe at stake. So it is a place where we have three different areas, different cults, with differences, but all and everything in harmony. So the project or the design and the project doesn't want to synthesize religions or promote a super religion, but rather we want to promote the differences between religions as something to be respected and given life to. So the faithful ones of the different religions are invited to attend their place of cult. But thanks to the characteristics of the architecture, every faithful person has to go through a fourth space that is called a forum. And the forum is a common area that, from the architectural point of view, generates dialogue between the mosque, the synagogue, and the Catholic Church. So the three structures at the same time remain different but interconnected. So this is what every faithful person experiences when going to the Abrahamic Family House. So they go there to pray, but if they want to pray, they also have to recognize the presence and existence of the other religions. So by doing that, they live their own identity, but they're also interconnected with the other religions. The Catholic Church is dedicated to Saint Francis of Assisi, donated to Pope Francis by the President of the Arab Emirates. And the Vicariate is in charge of the pastoral animation. The person responsible is Father Stefano Luca, expert of Islam and interreligious dialogue. After 1 year from its opening, now there's a stable Christian community that goes to church for Mass, especially on Sunday, but also during the week. On Sunday, the church is always crowded. And also there are meetings for education, religious education, especially focused on interculture and interreligious meeting. The forum, the fourth space that I mentioned, every week hosts some workshops, some educational moments for children and also adults, open to the three religious communities. And the activities organized here have some specific topics promoting interreligious dialogue in order to show that if we're together, we can really face our challenges, common challenges. What is really amazing and what always impresses me is that everybody attending this forum and this place always has the feeling of being with a family. And with no fear, they can share moments, but at the same time, obviously, living their own religion. And this is, we have a catechism for young people, and also Catholic churches are invited to visit the house and also to study the document on human brotherhood. With regard to the Middle East situation, especially after the 7th of October, I think it is extremely important to be able to defend this experience that is a very important experience for the meeting of different religions. And it is about to promote a dialogue between different faiths. It is not a niche for experts. People, communities need to be able to meet, to be able to know each other and work for the common good. And by the way, in these countries, our faithful people always live next to Muslim people, Hinduist people, the Sikh religion, etc. So we live side by side in society, at school, at work. This is why dialogue with the other religions is something fundamental. It is not just for a few people, but for all of us. Every day we live next to the other religions. So the real meeting, the real dialogue, never wants to abolish differences, but rather it invites to go deeper into understanding the differences, being aware of differences, respecting other religions, and especially respecting the freedom of other people to believe in a different religion. This correlates deeply with freedom. So in order to set up a dialogue with people with a different faith, you never have to question your own religion, but rather you have to deeply respect the mystery of other freedoms. So, of course, the truth of religion goes through the respect of the freedom of everybody. And as confirmed by the document, the Catholic Church never rejects the truthfulness of other religions. On Easter Day, after service, the Abrahamic House organized a lunch for us at the end of service. And so we were many people, and we were hosted at the forum space, and we were served by them, by these young Muslim people. And we were enjoying our Easter lunch, and we remembered that for them it was Ramadan. So they were fasting during the day, and therefore we realized it, and we said, thank you for what you're doing for us. We're sorry that you're bringing us food and drinks while you can't eat or drink right now. And one of them, in a very nice way, he said, we're so happy to be here to give this gift to you, because we know that for you this is the most important day in the year.
Grazie, Monsignor Martinelli. Adesso volevo concludere con una domanda a entrambi un pochettino più.
Thank you. Now I have a personal question for you, and this is a personal question about what you have described, what you have shared with us, both of you. You are both migrants. You are migrants, are both religious, but you have different histories, and well, you, Berardi, you belong to the Order of Santissima Trinità. So I'd like to ask you, in your experience, your personal vocation, and also the your personal experience, how does it help you live and understand the essential? How is it like to live in this desert that is also spiritual, not just geographic?
Ordine della Santissima Trinità e degli schiavi. Dunque,
Well, for us, charisma is communion and liberation. Communion and liberation is something that I think you know.
la Trinità è il fondamento certamente con Cristo, la divinità di Cristo, il fondamento della nostra fede. E poi
Because the divinity is something that is related to the Trinity of God, and we receive this freedom, which is not possible in if we are not, let's say, to do this. Our order dates back to the late 12th century for a response to the conflict that was the time between the Western and the Eastern countries in the Crusades. And San Giovanni de Mata founded it because there were people who had to ride a donkey to go there during the war, not to fight, but to liberate the slaves or the prisoners of crusades at that time. And they had to go there and talk, conversate with Islam. So there is a very long history of conversation and dialogue with the Islam. Sometimes it was a commercial deal, you know, like prisoners, Christian prisoners in return for Muslims that were in Western countries, or vice versa. So it is a very long and interesting history and story. And this charisma,
dove c'è questa schiavitù o mancanza di libertà,
helps us deal with those places where there is a lack of freedom. And that's why we were sent there. My brothers who are there in the vicariate were sent to help Christian communities with no
spirituale.
priests or with no spiritual guide. And so we are really in the dynamism of our charisma. What I discovered about this charisma is that there are Christian communities that are closely connected to the faith, and something that helped me a lot, and have sometimes a different way to live the faith depending on the countries. In some countries, that there's a classical situation with churches, whereas in some countries there are no places of worship, of places to meet. So it's quite atypical. And so the church is not made by priests only, but it's made by everyone, all of us. And laymen are very important in organizing and in communicating faith in these countries, because it's them who organize the catechism, prays when the priest is not there. They organize the community and the faithfulness to the universal church. And being a bishop, I also have to consider this important dynamic aspect of lay people. And it's not easy to convince the priests who want to be involved, always involved a little bit in everything, but leave the right space and the right place to laymen. And everyone depended on their charisma. For sure, there is the world of clergy and the secular world, but the two have to collaborate, to work together to construct the Church of God. I somehow had a conversion, you know, a conversion to this new approach, to this effort. Because over there, we cannot organize things as we do in our own countries or in Africa, in the Philippines. It's a new way to live the church. Sometimes it's more traditional, sometimes it's more dynamic, but it is a way to reconstruct the world of the body of Christ. The year-long experience that I've had in those countries has changed me deeply. I am not praying for the people only anymore, but I'm praying in particular with the people, so that the different charismas can prosper and grow. And as I said, it is an example of life when we cannot speak, but there are some signs that we are Christians. And when a non-Christian says, I recognize your faith, well, that's a victory for our spiritual life. So it is a personal challenge, but also a personal joy to serve this different kind of church. Thank you. Monsignor Martinelli, we know that you are a Capuchin of the St. Francis Order. And so, for Monsignor Berardo, going there was completely different compared to your background.
The first thing I'd like to share with you is my own idea of the desert, what it is. You know, I have a lot of time to go through the desert, especially when you travel from one town to another, one city to another. You go through the desert. And also, the Bible tells us that God talks to man by going to the desert. Well, actually, the desert is very lively. It's never like it was before. It's always changed by the wind. So actually, also God, you can't fix a God in your own mind with an image. You can't block a God. You can only follow God every time God gives himself to us as a gift. So this is my image, my idea. And then why did I end up in the desert? This is quite interesting. Well, because Capuchins are connected to the Gulf for a few centuries. And actually, I had forgotten about this tradition. But then I realized it when I received the call, and I had been auxiliary bishop of Milan for a few years. Then I received the phone call, and I asked myself, why should I go to this place? I've never been there before. And then I remembered that Capuchins have been there for 2 centuries. So since I'm Capuchin bishop, it was a good way for me to respond to the call. So what does it mean to look after or to be after the essential? There are 2 words, vocation and mission, which you can't divide. First of all, essential. Essential means recognizing the vocation, being loved. Always. Essential means recognizing that we are loved. This is the ultimate meaning of life. As Monsignor Giussani said, there's nothing like that. I mean, being loved, being wished for. And if you don't have this feeling, then everything becomes a problem. Instead, if you have this recognition, this feeling as predominant in your life, then problems become part of the path of life. And also being called for a mission. So, to a mission. This simplifies and testifies the relationship with ourselves and with God. Well, you know, Pope Francis says in Evangelii Gaudium, he says, I'm a mission. A mission is actually a way to live, a way to perceive time, space. It is a way to inhabit this earth. It means that you are sent by someone. So it means that you have a relationship with the one that sends you. You have a relationship with God. Just like Jesus was sent by his Father, the apostles were sent by Jesus. Just in the same way, we are reached by the mystery of God through the church. It's not only the Pope, but, just like the Pope that sends you some way you would have never imagined to go to. And then you are always sent by someone. A mission is never generic. First of all, you are sent to serve the holy people of God to the Gulf. I'm there among the Muslim brothers in order to serve and to testify to them the joy of the gospel. And at the same time, learning from them and working together with them in order to build a more just, fraternal world, more human, within the reign of God. And then you are always sent with someone. You are never a missioner by yourself. You're never a missionary by yourself. and you live the brotherhood with your travel companions. I'm thinking about the other friars, my friends, the nuns, the holy people of God. And very often they are the ones that support me, and I perceive my life as part of this mission. I must say that the experience, my experience in the last 2 days, in 2 years, I must say that I was very well prepared in Milan. And the Diocese of Milan was like a gym for me of intercultural context. And it's a crossroad of cultures. It is a church of a people formed by peoples. And there's where I learned that migration is not just a problem. Of course, sometimes it may be difficult, but actually it is a process that is changing the face of the church and also the face and the look of society. And then, obviously, I'm after the essential, and this is thanks to my masters that I met. I'm thinking about many friars, my Franciscan education. When I was a child, I was always fascinated by the essential life of Saint Francis of Assisi. He was looking for the essential, always looking for the gospel. His great ability to speak to other people. And here, the meeting with the Sultan, Saint Francis tells us how friars should behave when they go to the Saracens. And so they don't have to clash against them. They have to confess they are Christians and then go there and announce the word of God in a simple way, but essential. And I think that Saint Francis wouldn't have amazed me so much if I hadn't met with the charisma of Don Giussani. And I attended his courses at the Cattolica University. And this is still fundamental in my dialogue with different religions. So we have to understand this need to find the real meaning of the things we live. So even today, I remember those lessons, those classes by Don Giussani. And thanks to him, I understood that the importance of that question about the meaning and the sense of life and death, joy and pain, which allows us to wake up every morning in order to work hard, in order to have his reign fulfilled and come true. Thank you.
Bene, grazie ancora davvero di cuore perché ci avete proprio...
Thank you so much. Really, thank you, because you told us what it means to live the essential of our life. Thank you so much for telling us about the desert and the meaning of the desert. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending this meeting. One last thing. You've seen that there are so many desks around the meeting with the heart, donate now. The meeting has decided, after Cardinal Pissaballa's words, talking about how to build dialogue and peace, we have decided that one part of the donations we receive at the meeting, they will be donated to the emergency in the Holy Land. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
la civiltà dell'amore. Fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite